I want to say we're proud to be in Oakland. We're proud to have Jerry Brown as our governor. And he said recently at the graduation at UC Berkeley that at crucial moments, imaginative and bold people make a difference. You are all imaginative and bold people here. What we are doing here is doing what that calling is to do, which is to imagine, take bold action, and let's change the future. Governor Brown, please come forward.
It's great to be here to see something really impressive to be accomplished. We live in a time when what's news is what breaks, and what works is kind of just assumed. I was reading the obituary of the first executive director of BART, and he was pushing this thing, got it, the bond issue, helped pass it along. My father was governor there in 1962, and just got it passed by 1 point, and then he pushed it and finally got it going, and BART the tube was about to be completed, and he had all the press around, and he had this BART train going, all the press was watching, and went right into Fremont and kept on going into a parking lot. Very embarrassing. Needless to say, they got rid of him after he'd been there 10 years. The lesson is, when you build things, it doesn't always work out right away. Now, a lot of people, go by the wayside. Usually the person who figures it out, somebody else comes along and takes all the credit. But building takes persistence. It takes vision. It takes collaboration. It takes a lot of hands. And it doesn't get done overnight. And what's important is to have that sustainable commitment to be able to keep going. And we are in a society where we measure life in Twitter time. Now I Twitter, not all the time, just little things. 140 characters. And if you watch Twitter, it keeps coming down. Just little bits and pieces. All right, that's one time frame. But there's other time frames where you have to think long term. And you don't think about it. I was going to say that word. Stuff happens, which it does. But you got to think, we kind of go along, we don't think about the long term. I lived in the fog. I grew up in San Francisco, and I went along, we used to hang out in the sun a lot, and then when I'm 72, I found out a little carcinoma on my nose. You're not supposed to be in the sun. That's why I'm sitting back there in the shade. I'll risk 5 or 10 minutes here. But who thought of that? Who thought of that when I run around the Russian River with all the sun soaking up? That, by the way, that sun is radiating little parts of your skin, and pretty soon it creates little mutations, okay? Well, the same thing is climate change. Who's thinking about it? It's not a problem. We have a senator from, I think he's Oklahoma, he says it's all a big hoax. Well, we just got word from the observatory in Honolulu, Mauna Loa, that finally there are 400 parts per million greenhouse gases, CO2 in the environment. Measured, scientific, no doubt whatsoever. Last time that was happening, it was 3 to 5 million years ago. Ice caps, pretty restricted, pretty small. What was the sea level? 60 feet higher. Okay? These things take a little while to fit in. I don't know that we're 60 feet above sea level where we're sitting. I just want you to think about that. By the way, if it goes up 2 or 3 feet and you get surges from extreme weather, that water is going to flow over that Oakland runway over here in San Francisco. How much is that? So we're looking at trillions of dollars of expenses. We're looking at mass migrations. We're looking at disruptions. We're looking at all sorts of stuff. But it's not news. Don't worry about it. What's worried is some, string of silliness that titillate us and that you can tweet. Well, this is something that we're seeing today that is looking for the big picture, a zero energy building. Now, when I was governor the last time, I tried to build an energy efficient, I sponsored, I didn't build it, I don't know anything about building, but I know a good building when I see one. And so we've got this building, and And we had a great idea. The idea was, in Sacramento, instead of air conditioning, we would put rocks in the basement. And Sacramento, by the way, gets cold. It gets warm, it's in the afternoon, gets really hot, and then in the evening it cools off, and it's still cold, cooler in the morning. And the idea was we blow wind in the basement and cool those rocks, and then blow the wind, blow the cold air through the building. Great idea. Well, it didn't quite work. It was still a good building, though, for a lot of other energy efficiencies. For example, we put the stairway in front. So when you came into the building, you wanted to go up, it was 4 floors, you were pushed, at first, you wanted to go up the stairway. You had to go way in the back to find the elevator. That was the idea. Very efficient. Use your own feet. Become a non-motorized unit. That's what Caltrans calls pedestrians and bicyclists. Non-motorized unit. Because that's the exception. The rule is mechanization. Well, that's in those days. So here we got, finally we get something that works. And we tried things that didn't work. We had a wood chip gasifier to provide heat for the state building. That damn thing still doesn't work. So, but here we got a building, it's working. So my point is that when you do things, there's going to be failure and stumbles along the way. You got to keep going. And yeah, when you tweet it out, big failure. Well, yeah, we had Cylinder, that's kind of a mess. I don't understand all that stuff. But you keep charging ahead. And we know where we got to go. We got to go to zero net energy. We got to stop wasting. Stop wasting. We need more elegant design, more efficient ways of using things. And then we'll use the solar. We're going to electrify the Caltrain over there. We have almost $1 billion of bond money ready to do that. It's part of our high-speed rail program. And we want to ultimately get it in renewable energy. This is where the world's got to go. If we don't go there, you won't be here. You, I mean, not me, but some of you younger folk, it won't be. It's going to be, this is really big. If you go to my webpage, you'll see a way to sign on to a new scientific manifesto. It was put together by over 500 scientists have signed it. Stanford and Berkeley started it off. We announced it a couple of weeks ago. It'll take a while for people to know it's there, but that's the future. And this building, they're not, I was looking at the research, there's only a handful of these buildings, zero net energy. But the design is just simple. Use less, be more efficient, get the design right, and then what's left over, use renewable energy. And that can create millions of jobs. In fact, hundreds of millions all over the world. This is where we got to go. Now, not everybody has the sun, but they have the wind, they have ocean currents, there's all sorts of things that can be done. That's what the task is. Now, I know we all like entertainment, and we all like toys, and we all like all those goodies. I do, you know, I like a good drink. But after all the fun, what's the point? You know, what is the task? If people ask, I used to ask myself that. That's why I went into the seminar. I said, what the hell am I doing here in this world? I'm going to go check out the next world. So I did that for 4 years and thought a lot about stuff. Purpose. Well, you got purpose here. You got purpose, you got collaboration, you got business, you got labor, you got a union contract, and you got apprenticeship. And I always wanted to push apprenticeship everywhere. And this was before college loans. 1975, they weren't talking college loans. Now they're $1 trillion, bigger than consumer debt. And I always like that idea, work and earn, instead of borrow, learn, and pay. That's the model, but I don't love that. So, and it will evolve, everything changes, but this net energy building stuff is really important. And then there's some, you know, lifestyle changes. You got to walk a little more, maybe learn how to ride a bike again. And BART, you can take your bike on BART. I mean, we got to change. And before, people made fun of all this stuff. That's how I got one of them, I got my Governor Moonbeam. I earned it with a lot of hard work. So it wasn't just solar energy. There was a lot of stuff. So you can't get too far ahead. So I'm not as far ahead as I used to be. I'm trying to be a little more mainstream here, mainstream. So this is very mainstream here, but it's very bold, and it's absolutely necessary. So this is good work, it's worthy, it's absolutely imperative, and you're doing it together with good prevailing wages. I mean, that's what we want. This is not just, okay, market is it, right? The market, that's either God or the closet dictator. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but you can think about that. So the market says you buy and you sell, you try to get it as low as price, you buy it and you sell it the highest, including labor. And labor is an input. Labor is a factor of production. I never thought of myself as a factor of production. But that's the market system. So the market is not enough. We need the market, which is very powerful, produces a lot of good stuff, but we also need other things, morality. We need movements. We need human undertakings where we have other values. We have friendship. We have poetry. We have things we care about. We have beauty. And that all has to fit together. And that is what you get with elegant design. And it's not just about mechanical stuff, it's also about trees. Those trees cut the radiation to you people in the shade. And it's amazing. So it's a lot of stuff. And I think we got to get back to the basics. The basics are about survival. It's about enhancing the quality of our life. And that comes from elegance. Elegance is a kind of a nicer word for efficiency, because you're not wasting stuff. You're doing what is needed. And there was a Latin saying that we used to have in the seminary. It's called tantum quantum. Tantum is the Latin word for so much. Quantum is how much. So much you need, that's how much you get. Now that's a little bit too strenuous for most people, unless you want to go take a vow of poverty, chastity, and obedience. But the idea is still good. It sounds like zero net energy. So much you need, how much you use. And it's called balance. And that's what we have to achieve. And people whose lives aren't balanced, they have problems in their marriage, they have problems, their body, and societies that are unbalanced. That's not good either. So this is a great teacher of balance, of sustainability, of vision, of collaboration. And that's why I wanted to be here, because this is the future. And we got a handful of these buildings around. We need thousands of those buildings. And I've already signed an executive order that 50% of the buildings by 2020 have got to be of this character, and we want 100% by 2025 or 2030, depending upon whether it's a residential or anything else. And by the way, some of these guys come from, I won't even mention the states, you can imagine, but they say, we're going to come out to California because things, are so terrible, and you come back home for us because we have more people living below the minimum wage. We don't have any unions. We cut corporate taxes. I mean, it's really screwed up, okay? Here, we're trying to put everything together to make it work for everybody. Everybody. Corporations, workers, environment, kids, natural beings, and all the rest of it. So we've got a lot. It's not perfect, but we are on the right track in California. This is the wave of the future. And we're going to push it right across this country and right across the world. Because I went to Beijing, I gave a talk on climate change, they're talking about it. This is the future, it's big. This is little because it's only one building, 42,000 square feet, but it's big. So that's why it's important, and you're here, and you've heard more damn speeches than I've heard in a long time. So, but I think it's just a way, in our own halting way, that we say, big deal, congratulations, let's do more, let's put more people to work at good wages, taking care of things.